The headline for the next session is Arts and Success, how to combine them, if possible. And to talk about that, we have David and Christoffer from the last session. And foremost, Soyoung, welcome. It's so nice to have you here. And David, you are actually going to start with some considerations about arts and success.
I will try.
Feel free.
I will try to... You stop me if you can't understand me. I will try with a short story. More than 20 years ago already, this was in '99, I think, I commissioned 7 works for solo violin by 7 different composers. So I received the works one by one, and they were all from very different aesthetics. That was my point, to make a bridge at a time where in France, Pierre Boulez, Pierre Boulez, maybe he was very strong. So anyone who would write tonal music would be damned for eternity. So I wanted to bring the family together. Anyway, one day I was on the train to go to study one piece with one of the composers, with Viktor Kisin, a Russian composer, very good friend of mine. And on that train, I opened an envelope with the piece of another composer. It was Brice Posay, he's a professor in Freiburg, also great friends. And I opened his music, and it was so complicated, like Brian Ferneo, I don't know, this kind of music. So kind of 60 notes with a 42 and then 2, and you have to play this in 2 seconds with quarter tones and double stops and double flageolets. And this is, and I was really getting really anxious and then very angry with him. And I really wanted to kill him, for writing such a piece for me. And I was thinking, my God, this guy is going to destroy my life. So then I arrived at Victor's place, and I was really pissed off. And I told him, look what he did, look what he did. And he looked very calmly, and he told me this thing. He said, with the musicians, you have 2 categories, the musicus and cantor. The musicus is the one who is working only with the language, with the music. He doesn't care if you can play, if you can listen. He's just with the music. And the cantor is the one who is composing for people, like Bach, for example. Bach was cantor. That means that Bach was commercial at that time. Even if when he wanted to go to Hamburg, the authorities preferred Telemann. I let you do the rest. So it raises a question of what is the relation to music? What kind of relation to music do we have? Is it a relation as the connection to people? We need to play for people, we need to compose for people, or we are just in the spheres, of music, like many composers are, and also some performers who don't perform actually. Mostly pianists, sometimes incredible pianists, whom we don't know because they are with, somewhere else. So, from that point, we have to follow the line and the tension, which I think has grown quite a bit between music and success in the last centuries. If I take Schubert, for example, Schubert, one of my favorite composers, I must say, he has been played by professionals once in his life. Otherwise, friends, and nothing. Absolutely the most unsuccessful musician, I think, if you compare the talent and the success. And sometimes when my students are depressed, I tell them, look, Schubert, he was so better than you, so much better than you and me, and he had less success, so take it easy. So Mozart, as a kid, he was taken as a kid. I mean, it was show business, totally. And I think as a deep musician, truly, he was never put at the place where he belonged, because at that time he had been a prisoner of this Wunderkind thing, where his father had put him. So he was a hostage of success and probably died from it. Schumann. We love Schumann, but who else does, actually? If you want to program Schumann, now the promoters will tell you, no, it doesn't sell. So he never sold tickets, and he was quite unsuccessful as well, and with a tragic life. So I could go on like this with composers, but I guess the burning topic is more with performers. Performers already, are we still musicians if we can't compose? If we go back to our recent past, even with Chrysler, I mean, we should be able to compose. We should be composers. I mean, we are like the great performers are the lousy composers, when the great composers are both great performers and composers, but they are mainly composers. If you take Bartók, Prokofiev, they were playing incredibly the piano, but we know them as composers. Chrysler wrote many nice small pieces, but we know him as a performer. And then we arrive to this golden generation of violinists whom we talked about, like Heifetz, Milstein, Oistrakh. I mean, we love them so much, but they are composing less and less. So they are performing more and more. And even if it's a golden age, when we had great chess champions, and there was this big fight between two worlds at the time of David Oistrakh. So we had those great schools from the West and from the East, and those political systems fighting through the artists, through sports, and so on and so on. So we have this kind of highlight in the playing, and this was not yet commercial. It was political. But since the wall falls and social democracy got step by step destroyed, not yet in Norway because you have enough oil, but I can tell you in some other countries it's game is over, and the meaning of music is not a subject. Music is not a subject anymore. It's an object that has to be sold. Punkt. So what do we do with this? Christoffer.
That's a big question. No, I mean, I suppose we need to find ways of making art relevant to the people. And most of us, at least for most of us, I suppose it's important to experience success. So we want the success to happen in our lifetime, perhaps also within this decade, or to be somehow immediate. So I think the art of success is about being artistic, being individual, creating something that is special, but making it in such a way that you can touch others with it, like Bach did. What do you think?
Did I open a too wide subject? Mm-hmm. So help us to go back to reality then. Do you mind? Talk about you. Yeah, about your success, or your vision of success, or the meaning of success for you.
Last few years, I was thinking a lot, what is actually success for me, for the violinist? And because of COVID and all, I had lots of people, they had time to stay home and just think probably too much, but I was becoming a bit like down and depressed. And I started to compare myself with the other violinists who are having like marvelous success with New York Philharmonie, and I started to compare myself with them. And then last year, or yeah, I think it's about last year, beginning of last year, I started to eliminate all my friends who are telling me, "Hey, you're a great violinist, but why you don't have concert with them and them?" And they are like, they really worried about me, but they made me somehow depressed. So I started to really don't have contact with them. And then I started to feel like, okay, what is success for me? I think I would love to, I love being on the stage, and I love communicating with the audience when I'm on the stage. So for me right now, my life goal is to be active as a musician, active as a violinist, to be on the stage no matter where, and just to communicate with the audience. I think that is now a definition of my success in art. Because sometimes, of course, people are asking, what is yours, like, what is ideal success for you? Of course, I mean, it's difficult to say what is a perfection. But for me, right now, the successful violinist will be just very active on the stage and just share this beautiful music, beautiful moment with people. If I can make some people going back home with a warm heart, that I think that would be me being successful.
Wonderful. Bravo. Christoffer, from your place, because you are an artist, you are a musician, but now you are on the other side. No, on the other side. On the other side, the side of people who are making things possible or impossible sometimes. But what is your spine? How do you choose people? How do you choose the people you work with? According to which priorities? Because it's complicated, right?
It is complicated, yes. I mean, I should add. I right now I work for an orchestra. I work for the Dresdner Philharmonie, and we program like the Oslo Philharmonic or like the Trondheim Symphony, a concert every week, at least 1 or 2 concerts every week, and we need a program that works, and we need to sell tickets. We don't need to sell 100% of the tickets, but we need to sell a good chunk. And we need to create a varied program, because that's our mission too, as an arts organization, as a state-funded arts organization. So in a way, we're not... Success is not only commercial success. That would be a different game. I need to create a program where we do have some amount of commercial success, but where we also sustain classical music, where we keep what it's all about. And we're also a community organization, so we want to be inclusive. We share a beautiful building in the middle of the city of Dresden with the public library, and it's a building where kind of like this, or like Olavshallen, where just lots of people come and go, and we want to some extent to create concerts and make content that includes everyone, that allows everyone to come in and experience classical music. So, what do I look for? In order to, it kind of boils down to personality and communicators on the practical level, because that's what I need. I need communicators and personalities in different areas, whether that's Christoph Eschenbach, who did Bruckner 7 last week, which, you know, I wouldn't hire Christoph Eschenbach to do an outreach project with I don't know, rap music. But for Bruckner 7, this now 84-year-old guy, it was just fantastic. The room he was able to create, the space, the performance. Then we need, I don't know, young dynamic violinists. We need chamber music, we need everything. But we look for different personalities, different styles, and the best people in their fields.
But how do you know they are the best in their fields? You have been an agent for a few years, many years. So you know all the tricks and all the traps, right?
Yes, or not. Well, no, I don't know all of them, but I wouldn't say that. But yes, it's cruel to say that we want the best, because ideally, of course, we want the best, but we also need things. I mean, it's also a business at the end of the day. I mean, selling concert tickets is a business, doing competition is a business. There is a business side of things. Of course, we need people who can omsette, who can turn their talent into business, as it were. And sometimes it's not the best artists who are the best businessmen. Actually, very often it's not the best artists who are the best businessmen. And
the tension starts.
Exactly. So you need. So it's a compromise, like everything else, like so many other things in life. It's a compromise.
Art is art about compromising.
This is where again we're a publicly subsidized civic institution, so we need to again find workable solutions, as we, I think, both agree on politically these days.
Difficult days for
it is
classical
difficult
music.
days in Saxony, for example. It's extremely polarized because we have a very strong right wing, as everyone has heard by now. You have that in France as well. We have that, and also a very strong left in France as well as in Saxony.
Extreme left.
Extreme left, exactly. It's a very polarized society, and I would wish that the politicians and that the public conversation was more about finding compromise and finding similarities rather than just stressing the differences. But because, for example, again, just going back to the art, yes, we need to find compromise. We need to present a little bit of everything, like a public library would, for example, too. Or again, but there are other institutions like the Boulez-Saal in Berlin, for example, which is really a specialized chamber music hall. I mean, they really specialize in chamber music on the highest international level. So they, for example, can be more, and it's all of course very much colored by Barenboim's wishes and aesthetics and so forth. And they can afford, I think, to do that more than we can.
So you mean that when you have a big orchestra and you have a big hall, then you have to have generic products somehow. I know it's very interesting because actually I have had an orchestra. We will give our last concert in 2 weeks. It's called Les Dissonances, if you are curious, and it's a little different because I am not conducting, so there is no human being there, and there is collective intelligence, no artificial intelligence. It's human intelligence, and I wanted to create a free place for the art, for the music, where the music, just about music, like no marketing, no stars, no big name. If we had the big names, they could sit and play. And so we've been playing for 20 years, packed concerts all the time, no marketing, nothing. And younger audience, I mean, we could, cross all the, all the cases. And till we have to stop because there is no support for this different model. And I realized that actually the orchestra, the metaphor of a society from more than four people, that means more than a quartet, with the refinement of a quartet and the expectations of a quartet is not possible. The industry doesn't allow it, and the politics don't allow that to happen. This is very interesting and a little sad for freedom and art in classical music as well as for creativity, I think. But that's a tension which I've been through, which is a huge tension between an industry and a business and the freedom of art. And I could keep the tension for many years because I had the supports. But with the coming of fascism or verticality in Europe, which maybe you can't feel here, but we can feel it quite strongly in France, of course, the desire of verticality and authority. doesn't match this freedom, this feeling of freedom and creativity. And I think, as you said, it's very connected to the scent of time, like the period we live in. I started with Bach. Who are the cantors of our music nowadays? I mean, the level is not the level of Bach, right? Or is it?
We don't know yet, I guess.
Well, we should know them because the cantor, we should know them. So it's like, you know...
Well, there's still people who compose well.
Yeah, but I mean... The
level of Bach.
The prominent composers, it's more or less minimalistic music. I heard a concert with Bach and glass. So maybe it's more field glass than Johann Sebastian Bach, which means a lot, I mean, about the understanding of music, because you said, and you're right, we have to attract people. Like everyone should feel that it's his home. But the education of people and the level of classical music, it's creating a huge tension between an elite art, because it's complicated, you have to learn, you have to go to school, you have to learn, and the idea of a democracy, which is actually a fake democracy in a way. So we are, I think, as a musician, and I'm sorry if I'm not politically correct, that doesn't matter. I think the tension in where we are between the incredible amount of young players, of musicians, and this society which goes to some kind of, we say in French, nivellement par le bas, which I don't know how to say it in English, but like everything is from down.
Just lower the bar, I suppose.
It's like if you have a class with kids and you will teach so that the one who doesn't understand will understand. So at the end, everybody will be like the last one. And we are a little bit in the middle of this. So,
well,
I think
now we are in a very cynical corner, I would say, and then of course parts of the job is like that, and that's the problem of programming for a big house. But I have to say also on a more positive note that I always go with my heart, because when I know when I'm touched by something. I can feel it. I you know, when the tears come, and I know like this meant something. This is special, and with young musicians, for example, that's what we look for. And also that we have to cater to an audience doesn't mean that well, it's a diplomatic one, because I work with of course with our marketing department a lot, with our PR department. There's a constant conversation: what can we sell? What should we do? But essentially, I never ask an open question, because if I ask open questions, I just get answers that I don't want. And they really have no clue, because they think, in a way, it's very good, because it's kind of a devil's advocate in our office, because they are not classical musicians. So in a way, they're sort of basic level of or their basic attitude is that everything we do is complicated and stupid. So essentially, I don't ask them for advice. I think of how I want to propose an idea, what's important to us, and then we create something that might work.
Resistance, somehow.
Yeah.
And there is a very famous French philosopher, Morin. I don't know if you know him. Edgar Morin, we are late?
5 minutes.
I see 5. Great. He's 102 years old, and he was in the resistance during the Second World War in France, when the Nazis were there. And he just said, now it's time for the humans to enter in the resistance again. And he meant the resistance is to keep thinking. So for him, to be a human is to still try to think the world. As we are all very specialized in what we do, we have problems to think the whole, which is very complicated, very complex, of course, so that we understand the meaning of what we are doing. And the meaning of being a musician nowadays can be to connect people, to play for them, to make them better humans during the concert, or human again, as Trump would say, to make America human again. And and we have to, I think individually, if I would conclude for me, we have to still love, to grow our love for music again and again and again. And this is also for students. What I tell them, however life will be, that the love for music is growing, and this is something you cannot command, I think. I'm sorry, you want to say something else? No? No, please. No? Really? Okay. What do you think about that one?
No, I was just thinking that we were talking about Norway, because again, I've been gone for 24 years, basically, living abroad, and it's interesting to come back and also see how humans are here, how things are taught, and I think we both agree that it's freer. It's things in Norway are a little more free, lively, close to nature. You said, yeah. And we heard that also in the competition, also with some interpretations and so forth. I think there's a history of that too. So on a practical level. Also going back to what was said earlier today, I think, I mean, it's art and success on a practical level is a balance between skill and freedom and fantasy. So it's about finding those two, balancing those two things. And I think sometimes, in France and in Germany, we probably forget the fantasy part and don't give enough room for that. And in Norway, it's probably opposite. Sometimes there is not too much fantasy. There's never too much fantasy, but it's a very different. I wish we could just take some of the freedom that we have here, that you have here, and bring it to Saxony, for example. But also, what's beautiful in the orchestra where I work now, for example, is just this beautiful sense of sound that they have together. That there is this very. They work as an organism. They breathe together. There's a very strong sense of what an orchestra or what the Dresdner Philharmonie is about. There's a very instilled discipline in the orchestra about that, and I think a standard repertoire, for example, there is only, like speaking of your bar, the bar is quite high because, and also in London or with these very experienced orchestras, it can only be so bad because there is a certain level that is always there. And I find with the Oslo Philharmonie, for example, just one example, because you hear them internationally. They're probably the only orchestra that's really active on an international level. And what is interesting is that when they have a bad night, they play worse than an English orchestra or a German orchestra. When they have a really good night, they play much better. So it's a balance. Closing remarks.
The voice of...
Sorry for walking around. I have a question for you, Soyoung, if that's okay. Because thank you for your reflections on the tension between arts and success. I know we have competed a lot, and since we have been talking about competition today, I was curious about your views on this tension between arts and success and to do competitions. Would you mind share some of your reflections about that?
Yes. If people ask me, hey, should I go to the competition? I always say, yes, please go. I mean, there are, of course, also visions of a competition is not good for you. I mean, this doesn't help your career, for your career. I mean, there are lots of opinions, but if somebody asks me, I always say, yes, please go. Because first of all, I mean, I learned how to be more disciplined when I was younger. And also, I loved meeting new people because, you know, if you're not going to competition, you're just... I studied in Cologne in Germany. I would move so much. But then I go to the competition, I meet new colleagues, new friends, and I mean, through the competition, I have the feeling that I just made a 1 year, okay, this is my chapter of my life, closed, but another one, challenging. And I think I grew up as a musician also through the competition. I also have lots of colleagues who hate competitions, but personally, I loved being every year having a goal. This year there's a Tchaikovsky competition, so I will go there, prepare. Next year there's a Queen Elizabeth, so I will go. So there was kind of, as a musician, probably not all the time about music. It was for me more discipline, challenge, and learning some new modern repertoire. Otherwise, I wouldn't do this. You know, here is also you have to play the modern repertoire. So, yeah, for me, if I think about back then, it was a very good time because you don't need to think about it. You study and you have a goal and you just go for it. So I think for my life, competitions were very important. So if young people, they're asking me, hey, go for it, I will always say.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Do you have any...
Maybe you have some questions or no? Nothing? Depression? Okay.
It was
Thank you.
so great. Thank you.